Welcome, creators! Sit yourselves down by the crackling hearth fire. I am Holistic Dungeon Master, and I help DMs master their craft with helpful videos like this one, where we dive into why everyone's take on the Matt Mercer Effect is total garbage, how it can actually be a great thing for the hobby, and how to use it to your advantage at your table, with a huge caveat, however. If you're enjoying my content, then please like the video, crit the subscribe button and notification bell, and get ready to level up your DM game like never before. Just had to get my dice. Let's get rolling! The Matt Mercer Effect has been described by some as the influence of Critical Role's insanely high production values, Matt's own kind of god-tier DMing, and how it's just placed outrageous expectations in the minds of people who play D&D, leading to players who are disappointed they didn't get the Critical Role experience, and stressed out DMs who lament never being as good as Matt Mercer, and most people consider it to be an overall net negative for the hobby overall. I myself am guilty of trying to copycat Matt when I first started DMing, right? You know, that's how I got into the hobby. I started watching Critical Role, started DMing. I'm sure many of you can relate. And I was very, very disappointed when I couldn't deliver like Matt does. So sure, these scenarios do happen. I'm not saying they don't, of course they do. And yes, it's very unlikely that those playing at home have crit rolling experiences, right? But it has undeniably changed the game, and not just Critical Role, right? It's called the Matt Mercer Effect, but there's other DMs out there producing content that is just not what people at home will experience. Brennan Lee Mulligan at Dimension 20, you know, their DM games are highly edited, highly polished, you know, that's just not what people will get at home. There's a bunch of podcasts out there, and it's, you know, talented actors, improv comedians, and all of this, right? So, like it or not, because of all this, the bar has been raised to incredible new heights. But are you going to be a DM who languishes in a self-made prison of inadequacy? Or are you going to take inspiration from the DMs, the people who are pushing the boundaries of what this hobby can be? Are you going to shy away from these expectations, or are you going to meet them head on and see them as an opportunity to grow as a DM? The choice is yours, and for those willing to rise to the challenge, here's how the Matt Mercer Effect can elevate your game. So why is it good? How can the Matt Mercer Effect be good for the hobby? Well, there's a bunch of reasons it can be bad. Sure, absolutely, but I think there's even more that it has to offer. A huge thing that I see in players is that they're learning how to be better players. I'm just going to be speaking about Critical Role here because, you know, most people who play D&D know about this one, but it can apply to any of these kind of high-level D&D productions you see online, right? When they see Laura Bailey or Travis or Sam Riegel or, you know, any of the players really, I kind of get really involved in their players, their backstories, their goals, their personalities, and not just that, not just their own players, but they can see them care about the other characters, right? It's this collaborative thing. And sure, there is that at every D&D table, but Cast of Critical Role do it specifically very, very well. I feel that this has fostered this atmosphere, this environment of more collaborative storytelling, right? And that is a great thing. The focus is kind of shifted heavily now into the narrative side of things, right? It's all about good narrative, good storytelling, and I feel that is the key to unlocking the true potential of Dungeons and Dragons, or any tabletop. Good narrative and good storytelling deepens immersion like nothing else. Yeah, you can have a good fight, but you know, there's a bunch of kind of meta out of your own imagination stuff, like rolling dice. Of course, it's a great thing to do, but like doing maths and thinking about mechanics and positioning, that of course is a great thing, but it's not anywhere near as good as a good narrative or atmosphere or story or an engaging story beat, engaging story beats to keep that immersion incredibly deep. And isn't that the whole point of Dungeons and Dragons, right? Isn't that the whole point, the reason we play it, to become immersed, to lose ourselves in this fantasy experience with our friends and to really see it, to really believe it, suspend our disbelief entirely while we're playing this game. For me anyway, and I believe that at the heart of it, at the real core of tabletop RPGs in general, that is the most important thing. Immersion, and good narrative and storytelling is just how you get there, in my opinion. You know, you have sound effects, music, right? Some background music and ambience. I know some DMs who throw in, you know, they even change the lights. They've got a light board and an RGB kind of strips that change with the mood, which is great, you know, and very, very good voices. They don't have to be voice actor level like Matt Mercer, of course, but if they're good, if they're believable, if they've got their own unique characteristics, as well as vivid descriptions, you know, able to describe a scene or atmosphere well, this all increases immersion to an incredible level. And people have watched Critical Role and they've seen now, it's kind of opened their minds to kind of what is achievable by these little methods of immersion building. And the effect that Matt Mercer, or, you know, people call it the Matt Mercer Effect, but it's the whole cast, it's the whole show, and it's other shows, right? But this that is the it is a huge benefit that this effect, right, has on the whole thing, is that immersion is now deeper, or at least it should be. Because of these shows and productions and, well, specifically Critical Role, players expect backstory-driven adventures now. Look at any pro DM's kind of ad copy, right? When they're trying to sell their services online. If you look in that specific kind of corner of the hobby, you can really get your finger on the pulse of the hobby in general. You know, what people are willing to pay for, right? In their ad copies, almost every single one of them place a huge emphasis on character backstories and how they're going to be intertwined with the narrative, because they know that this is what players want now. And you can say, I mean, especially if you're not really into that kind of gameplay, if you're into combat, or if you're into kind of more puzzles or the more survival aspects of the game, you can't deny that this is what the majority of players want now. And I think that this leads to a better game. There's nothing wrong with all of those other elements. In fact, they're crucial to the game too, but now they're not crucial to every game. You know, I've ran for some groups and we've went 4, 5, 6 maybe might be pushing it, but you know, we've went a bunch of sessions where there was no combat. There was no puzzles or exploration. Well, there was a bunch of exploration, but you know, it was mostly narrative driven. They had a goal, they were speaking to NPCs, there might have been a little bit of mystery there, and players are totally fine with this. In fact, I've met a bunch of players now who despise combat. They hate whenever it happens. But you know, of course, it's got to happen. It's part of the game. But why I think this leads to a better game is because if the game itself, the story, the narrative of it in general is based around their characters' backstories and their goals and what they want to achieve, and their arc, especially their kind of character arc, their character arc where they start and where their character ends up, right? Basing your game around this makes your players feel as though their characters are important, right? I've got a whole video of this. We'll put it up there. We'll put it at the end of the video somewhere, right? You'll see it up there. Every player wants to feel important when they play D&D. Their decisions, their characters, that's why they're even playing in this. They're engaging in this communal fantasy, semi-hallucinated game of imagination, right? It's an escape into a place where their choices matter, right? And if you revolve the game around what they've chosen for their character, the story they've invented for them, they're going to feel important, and it will be a better game for them. They'll be more engaged, and because they're more engaged, you're more engaged. You've less work to do as a DM because they've given you all of this raw material that you can cook up here in your DM brain. Because of this effect that's been occurring and affecting the hobby, players are more into that. And I feel like this is just a step further down the path to do the true potential of this hobby and of this pastime, tabletop RPGs, D&D, whatever. It's not just Critical Role having this effect on the hobby, and you can take inspiration from all of these DMs who are really pushing the boundaries. They have to, because they have to make their production unique. They have to make it exciting and engaging, and we can look at them, we can analyze and study their techniques, and we can pull the threads, these things that they've discovered to push the boundaries of this, and apply them to our own games, right? Just for an example, Matt Mercer, what I feel his main strengths are a compelling narrative. The immersion he crafts for his players and everyone watching. When you watch Critical Role, you're immersed for 4 hours, you're almost there, right? And creative combat encounters, he's very good at that, and they're almost 50% narrative anyway, right? But his combat encounters are fun and good to watch. Brennan Lee Mulligan from Dimension 20, in my opinion, one of the best DMs in the whole world, right? His games are just filled with madcap insanity. He's a comedian. He's incredible at improv. Matt Colva, right? MCDM. He has incredibly creative, engaging, and fun mechanics, right? I believe he started off as a video game kind of writer or designer. He was designing quests for video games, and the stuff he learned from that, he's been pulling on them and putting them into his games. He knows what is fun, and he's been playing D&D for a long time, right? And he knows all of the old editions, and in his 5e games or current games, he pulls the most fun bits out from all of those old editions and plonks them down into his games, as well as inventing some of his own, because of his career in video game design. He knows what is fun, and we can use all of this. We can pull on all of those threads and improve ourselves drastically as a DM. That is the Matt Mercer effect. That is the high quality, polished D&D stream effect that we can leverage for our advantage to improve our games, have a better time for our players and ourselves. Doesn't that sound good? Doesn't that sound like a positive thing, right? If you're willing and up to the challenge, of course. That's all well and good, right? But how do you use it? How do you leverage it? Well, take inspiration, as we've been briefly discussing before. What skills and talents do these DMs have that you envy, okay? Envy, many people give it a kind of a negative connotation, right? Envy, it's a bad thing. No, envy is a good thing. It is a strong signal for you, a signpost telling you where you want to improve, right? I myself was incredibly envious of Matt's ability to voice act the characters, right? It's, of course, he's amazing. It's his job to be amazing. And I don't think, it's not my job to be a voice actor, so I don't think I'll ever be quite as good as Matt Mercer in that respect. But I took that envy, used it as a signpost, and decided then and there that I will now improve my voice. I trained my voice every day. I practice accents, I practice different kind of ways of speaking to kind of give characteristics to NPCs, and now my players say that's one of their favorite things about my games, is how I give each one a unique and sometimes entertaining voice, right? And it's because of this effect that Matt Mercer had on me, right? And it could be any DM that has an effect on you. Whatever you hate them for the most, right? That they're super good at, that is what you want to improve on the most. Listen to your brain, listen to that envy, and work on it. Practice and get better. As I've been saying, players expect a very narrative-driven experience now based on their backstories, so learn storytelling and narrative techniques. Learn about different character archetypes, for example. Learn about story beats. Learn storytelling and narrative techniques so that you can give your players this high-quality backstory game. Most players want it, so give it to them. Don't, however, try to copycat or imitate your favorite DMs, right? It is obvious and it is cringe. Instead, you should improve on those kind of techniques that you feel envious about and put your own spin on them, right? The only way you learn how to do that is through practice. Maybe you will have to do a little bit of imitation to start, but always be looking to put your own stamp and your own spin on things. Create your own voices, your own plot lines, your own story elements, your own game mechanics, right? Don't just steal another DM's. Use them as inspiration, use that envy as a signpost, and get good at the things you enjoy the most about these DMs, right? But put your own stamp on them and develop your own DM style around these elements. This all comes with a huge caveat, of course. It's almost kind of a two-parter. But the main point is that there needs to be frank discussion with your party at session 0, even before maybe, about what to expect in your games. Even if you want to try and change your style a little bit as you try to kind of improve on those areas you wish to improve on, just discuss it with your players, okay? Especially if they haven't played D&D and their only exposure to it has been Critical Role or Dimension 20, whatever. If that has been their only, that is why they're getting into the hobby now. You need to manage those expectations, right? There was this very kind of infamous Reddit post, and I think it's where the term the Matt Mercer Effect was coined, right? I think it's called "How Do I Beat the Matt Mercer Effect" or something, where essentially this DM was complaining on a Reddit forum thread that, you know, he was incredibly stressed out because his players wanted him to be just like Matt Mercer and have, you know, the 3D game maps and all of that kind of stuff, right? I think the players in that Reddit post were idiots, right? There's no other explanation. They didn't think about it for just one moment that, okay, this is an incredibly high production thing. They're all talented professional voice actors and improvisers and, you know, show business people, right? Of course it's going to be incredible. You can't expect that. Your party are probably not going to be like that, right? But, you know, they still need to know that it's not going to be exactly like the shows, right? You just need to have that frank discussion. Also, kind of part 2 of this huge caveat is that if you're a DM who, you know, isn't really into story or narrative or role playing, right? And you're more interested in, yeah, like stuff like exploration, survival, dungeon crawls, kind of crunchy combat, right? Or puzzles or mechanics, stuff like that. Your party just wants to dungeon crawl and bob monsters on the head for their loot. That's totally fine. Just ignore this video, ignore the effect. The great thing about it is that if you find players who want to play the kind of game you want to run, you can avoid all of this, you can ignore this effect. I know you're out there. I know those DMs are out there. Maybe you're one of them now listening to this video. For some reason you've watched to the end of this video. You know you're not really into roleplay, right? Your enjoyment of the game and the way you play it is completely valid, right? So ignore it. However, if you are a DM who wants to lean into that, or you want to do it professionally, whether you're streaming or whether you're a professional dungeon master, the player base and the game itself is changing because of the effect that these high production games are having on the hobby. It's a fact. So you were now an expert in how to leverage the Matt Mercer Effect to your advantage. So go, watch other DMs, gain inspiration from them instead of just envying their prowess, and begin to develop your own Dungeon Master skills into something truly amazing. Remember, Matt Mercer is just a person. If he can become that good at Dungeons and Dragons, then you can too, in your own way, of course. It just takes some time and dedication. And as the game is headed into a more narrative and story-focused direction, I've written a bunch of system-neutral, story-focused, archetypal NPCs with no stats or mechanics or anything like that, so you can get started improving the narrative of your games. I'm giving it away for free, and you'll find it down in the description below. Also down in the description below, you should find a link to our community Discord server where we can hang out, discuss the game, and meet other DMs and players who love D&D. I'll also be posting my upcoming games in there, so you can utilize that if you wish to hire me as a Dungeon Master too. Now you've heard a lot from me, I want to hear from you. Please get typing down in the comments below. Let us know which DM inspires you the most, and how are you going to use that inspiration to improve your skills, right? Your own game. Do you completely disagree with what I'm having to say here and completely hate the Matt Mercer Effect, think it's ruining the hobby? Please tell us why. We can discuss this down in the comments below, and we can foster a community of Dungeon Masters who help each other improve. If you've watched this video up until now, then you are the DM that I'm making these videos for, right? Someone who is truly dedicated to being the best DM that they can be. So thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Please like the video, crit the subscribe button and notification bell, and remember, this world needs good DMs.